Okay, let's try to find the sum of this arithmetic sequence. This problem shows up a lot in math counts. Let's find some tricks to do this. I think the fastest way to do, well, there's a couple different ways I'll show you. One way, I like to find the average of these numbers. We can imagine if this goes up by 6s every time, that sum, that 84, 85, will be the same as these two and the next two, just like that. We compare them off. And I like to think of this as finding the average of those numbers. And then instead of thinking of it as the sequence 11 plus 18 plus 25, I just think 42.5 plus 42.5 all the way up to 42.5. So I'm just, kind of thinking in my head, these are all changed to 42.5s. So add up the smallest and the biggest, divide by 2, and we'll get that average. And then we just have to figure out how many numbers are there. Well, this is a small enough sequence you could actually write it out and count it, but it's not always going to be that way, so we have to come up with another way of doing this. So we're going to come up with a rule for this. So if we back this up and come up with our 0th term right here, this goes up by 7s. So if I subtract 7, I get 4 here. So my rule is 4, my 0th term, plus my increment, which is 7, times n. And then if this is my 0th, this is my 1st, this is my 2nd, 3rd, all the way up, I want to know what 74 is, which if I know which term number that is, that tells me how many there are. So I just say equals 74 and solve that. So 7n, if I subtract 4, I get 70. So n is 10, which means there's 10 numbers there. Okay, we're kind of ignoring the 4 here, just starting with the 1st. And this is my 10th. That's how it's going to work. Okay. Well, since there's 10 numbers and they all average to be 42.5, you simply multiply that together. 42.5 times 10. You'll get 425. And that's going to be our answer. Now, another way you can look at this, it's pretty much the same process, but it's another way of thinking about it in your head. I'm going to delete all this. Is pair them together like we did. There's an 85. Whatever the previous number is there, it's another 85. And another 85, and another, a bunch of pairs of 85s. And just think, well, how many pairs of 85s do we have? Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to do 85 times the number of pairs. Another way of thinking of it, okay? Well, how many pairs do we have? Well, it's half as many. If you think of the first two, if you want to think of it in pairs like this, or like this, there's half as many pairs as there are numbers. So using our same process from before, we would do the 0th term plus the increment times x or times n for our rule. That will help us find the number of numbers. So I'll quickly remind you to do that again. So we have the previous term, which was 4, plus the increment equals 74, subtract 4, so we get our 10. So we know we have 10 terms, 10 numbers. Well, if there's 10 numbers, that means we have 5 pairs. In our formula-wise, it's going to be like 10 divided by 2 to come up with that 5. So we just do 85 times 5. And we should come up with that same answer. What was that, 425? Easy enough. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. I just have one more here for you. Go ahead and try this on your own and hit pause, and then I'll run through it right away. If you're not sure where to start, you start trying this, then rewind it and listen to the explanation from the previous one again. But try to get the understanding of it before you hear me explain this problem. So hit pause now, and I'll explain. All right. For the answer, I'm going to take, maybe I'll do that second method first, just because it's fresh in my head right now. I'm going to take my 346 and my 16 and see how many pairs of that sum I have. Well, what is that, 362? And I want to know how many pairs, blank pairs, of 362s. Okay, so then I'll have to use my rule, figure out the rule to come up with the number of numbers in this sequence. This one I'm not going to write out and count. I know this goes up by 6 every time, adding 6. So if I subtract 6, my 0th term, which doesn't really exist, is 10. And that's where I start my rule. 10 plus the increment times x or times n. And if I want to know which term 346 is, that's what I'm going to make it equal to. Subtract 10, divide by 6. 4, 5, 56 terms. So 346 is the 56th term. And if this was the first term, second term, third term, then that means there are 56 terms, 56 numbers. Now, the 56 doesn't go there. There are not 56 pairs of 362s, right? I'm pairing these off, so there's half as many as that. So I take that 56 and divide by 2. I come up with 28 pairs of 362s. So if I do 362 times 28, I should get my answer, 10,136. Did you get it right? Now I don't know if you did it this way or if you thought of it the other way. I'll go ahead and show it the other way. And find the average. You know, thinking of these, I'm going to make all these the same number. Instead of a 16, I'm going to find the average of 16 and 346. If you see what's going on, I'm either dividing by 2 now, or I'm dividing by 2 with the pairs, like that 56 divided by 2. I'm just dividing by 2 somewhere. Just depends on how you want to think of it. And I'm going to figure out how many times the number of numbers. Okay. Well, this is 362 divided by 2 times the number of numbers. Well, again, we use that rule that we used before, the previous. So I'm going up by 6. This would be 10. So 10 plus the increment. And I want to make it equal to 346. What was that, 56? And then that's what I'm going to actually multiply it by the 56 this time. So my suggestion is to use one of these methods or the other. Now, don't like I'm doing both of these. You might get them confused, and you might want to divide that by 2 or something. If you divide this by 2 earlier and make this a certain number, you might forget and put a 28 there instead of a 56. And on the previous method that I did this, you might put a 56 instead of a 28. So pick one way or the other that you like, and go with it, and just keep doing it the same way every time. And what was my answer? 10,136, I believe. Hope I did that right. All right, I hope that helps. Keep practicing it. You know, come back to this and review it once in a while to make sure it's fresh in your head. You may never see it until the one time that you need it during the actual competition, and you'll wish it was fresh in your head. You didn't have to try to think back of what the heck did you do about a month ago or 2 months ago. Get a bunch of these under your belt, and you should be good to go.